through and just kind of hear how it hits me, how the mix makes me feel, and then start to listen for things that I think could be better, and where I want to go with it. Like on this, first thing I want to do is just see what I can do with that vocal. Because the vocal is the most important thing. Everything else is the canvas, and the vocal is the oil. It's the paint. So it really has to be. It's the most important thing. We humans like to listen to the vocal. Me as a drummer, I don't. But I've had to get over that. I don't listen to the words. It's weird. I can record songs and then not even have thought about what the meaning of the song is. Sometimes artists will sit me down and talk about that ahead of time. It's definitely good to know where the artist is coming from. This song's about my father who passed away in the war. I mean, that's really good stuff to know. It may give you a few little clues into how to mix the song, or this is just a fun party rock song, whatever. They can give you little clues about the song. Knowing as much about the band ahead of time and the artist, kind of where they're coming from, can be helpful, but it's not totally necessary. So the first thing I'd probably do with the vocal is just throw an EQ on it and just see what else we can do with it, and maybe a compressor. How do I do that?
Mike run the board.
You want to drive, Mike?
Okay,
cool.
He's our engineer. One thing I did notice, Mike, is that you've got the vocals.
Yeah, it
plus
was
almost 5 dB.
Yeah, I don't know
still
why that was like
clipping,
that.
just so you
I
can
was
hear it. I
on the
think.
input.
Yeah,
So it sounds like there's a guys. You just put the output to the bus. That's why all you hear is reverb. You don't hear the main signal anymore.
I generally don't
We
put.
need that to be buzzed.
I usually won't put effects, like lead vocals, effects. Pretty much almost anything, I don't put the effect on the instrument. Like if I want a snare reverb, I bust that out to bus 2, and then I run an aux return.
There's a knob you turn this.
Yeah, not the switch. There's a knob for the.
I'll run an aux return with the plug-in on it, and then you set the plug-in to wet, 100% wet. And the reason is that way your dry mix sound is still coming right down the stereo bus, and it's not running through the effect. And I feel that's cleaner. Pretty much everybody does that. In the old days with the analog console, or if you're doing live sound, that's how you're gonna have a reverb set up on aux 3. Whatever channel you want to have that reverb, you just turn up the reverb for aux 3 and it comes back. Up until I got the UAD Quad and Pro Tools 7, I can only run 2 instances of reverbs at once. So I'm still combining reverbs through an aux. So like if you're doing a drum reverb, I can put a little on the snare, and I can put a little on the toms, and I'm only using 1 instance of a stereo reverb, so it's way more efficient. And then I'm still getting all the natural transients from the drums coming through dry, and then the effects are mixed back in. So you're retaining your transients, not running everything through the plug-in.
So now he's got it sent out the bus, which is how you want to do it. Then if you option click that bus send, it'll go to 0, it's nominal, and then you can work the aux volume itself.
You just leave all the master tracks pretty much alone.
Yeah.
Right now, all your reverb's coming from that aux channel.
Okay.
And so you can.
And that way,
100%
yeah. And a lot of times you'll set up a house verb that kind of works for a lot of the track, and you don't have to have like a different reverb for everything. I typically use one reverb for all the vocals, another reverb for the drums. Those always have to be different.
Just to clarify, you're referring to like grouping the drums, or say your two vocal parts, grouping the vocals and adding one aux that would affect.
Well, you would assign an aux to whatever channel you want to go to that. So each vocal you could assign to aux 1, and then the drums you could assign whatever you think you might use to aux 2. I mean, a lot of times I just alt click and assign an insert to every single channel because it's faster, and then I can just navigate around and do that. But And there's of course there's always exceptions. I mean, maybe you have some weird little slide guitar and you're just like, I just throw reverb on that. I know it's dedicated for that and I want it to be spacey and weird. But the other advantage with that is I can have the reverb way over here on the left side, and I can have her voice, well, it's probably going to be in the center, but it could be a little to the side. If I had put the reverb right on that vocal channel, it's all married together, and however I pan the track, the reverb goes with it. Well, I want to use the reverb to create a bigger space, or a supernatural space or something. So you can put the reverb on the sides and get it out of the way. All right, so let's listen to that. I don't solo too much because I want to hear how everything's going to sit in the mix until there's an issue.
That's a good point, because it'll sound like a lot of reverb solo, and then in the mix,
Yeah, almost always I've not enough reverb in the mix. I think you're good. And then it's like, there's a nice reverb there. So let's look at the plug. Is that right there? Yeah, good. Let's go back to her voice. Oops. There's a voice right here. Oh, that's neat. When you solo it, it's coming up with the reverb. That's good to do.
Make them remember today, steal the show.
I'm just going to take a little lows off of her voice. It's real common to take some lows. You guys probably took some on the way in. But I want to get... It's almost the one thing I almost always do to vocals is take a little lows out. People get up in the mic and you get that proximity effect where you get more bass and it sounds great. But then you usually just have to rein that in a little bit. I want to have room for my bass guitar down there and my kick drum and other sonic stuff. And I don't want that... component of vocals in there. So I'll take that down. And the other thing about that is EQs, even in the box, are emulating analog EQs. And the way an analog EQ works is it's adding or subtracting itself on top of itself to bring up or down the level. So you're incorporating phase shift, which is going to smear the sound and the tightness of it. So with the bass, there's less frequencies down there. It's, it's 100, that area. Up in the vocals, top end of the vocals, 5,000, 10,000, you're going to incur a lot more phase shift. And you may not even notice it, but the sum of the whole mix, it's going to dirty it up and muck it up. So instead of boosting highs to get more clarity, I start with the lows and I cut lows. That way your whole top end is still phase linear. Sounds way better. You can try some tests with that at home. It's because I know it's really easy to go in there and say, I just need a little more high and just boost the highs. And believe me, I do that too. There's no rules. But it's good to start with cutting the bottom to get it to sit right. So I just did that first because I know that's going to affect the way the reverb sounds.
Cool thing about that reverb is there's a high pass filter on it also.
That's the thing too. The reverbs a lot of times in the box have too much full spectrum, and so I might want that to be even more dirty, especially because the reverbs we grew up with are either low bit digital or some kind of analog thing that didn't have a lot of high and low end. So you can EQ it in there, or with delays, which we'll try it on this guitar in a little bit, adding a delay to it. I might actually put an EQ in front of the delay and muck it up before it goes to the delay, because I don't want the delay on the guitar to have all that biting attack that the guitar had. I want it to be in the back and adding space but not be as dirty. So try just throwing any old EQ on the aux end before the reverb. It's really cool. This is a nice center reverb. Another thing that a lot of times we'll do with reverb is, because we want the reverb to be a thickening agent, but we don't want it to get in the way of her initial sound, is we'll put some pre-delay on there. Most engineers are using 15 to 60 milliseconds of pre-delay. And so if I crank the pre-delay up, here's 100 milliseconds, so a tenth of a second. Just play from somewhere in the middle if you can. Grab that.
You ever match your pre-delay with the tempo? Like set it in reverse
Absolutely.
tempo?
That is so important.
And how do you match the timing of the pre-delay with the tempo? Is there a formula for that? Or?
There is. You can go online and download it. Dave Pensato talks about that. But a lot of times, if your song's on a grid, you can just click the quarter note and stuff and get those times exact. But there's a BPM to millisecond conversion chart. I just downloaded it myself because I never had it. I just do it by ear, but you can get a little more exact. And it's a good way to breathe life into the track is to have the delays time to the track, especially the subtle ones that aren't necessarily huge effects, but just more thickening agents. And now you have guys actually timing their delay tails, or their reverb tails, so that it gets out after a quarter note or two notes or whatever, so it's not going too far. And it's just ways to get the track to kind of pulse with life. So this is the track. I want to hear the vocal with a big pre-delay on it so you can hear
We're not
what's
getting
going
any
on.
sound. There's not-
Did I solo something?
No, I took the solos off, but there's no sound coming from the guitars.
What are we doing wrong? We're doing something stupid. Click something?
What about the second layer?
Yeah, we're on the second layer.
Mm.
Did the output get muted or something?
Did anything get bumped on the apogees?
We might have.
Oh, am I down here? Yeah, pretty typical.
You might just break again. You look to the
It's
faces.
88.
A sea of judging
So if
people.
now it's on zero.
But you won't take it.
Here it's just bruh, bruh, bruh. It's mushy right from the start.
Let them know
So-
that you'll leave it behind.
So that way you hear the detail of her voice, the natural
Push the
acoustics of the
game
room
away.
before adding the
Break
artificial
it
cut.
up.
Our voice or our ears are really in tune to hearing the natural acoustics, and they want to hear that first. They're much more complex and detailed than any digital stuff that we've created at this point. So that way the room effects are part of what's going on first, and they're much more natural, and then the reverb kicks in and fills it in afterwards. Let's listen to it in the track.
Make them remember the day, steal the show.
These aren't on or not good, but
The only thing that needs to be on is 17, 18.
I just want to get her voice up a little.
All the highs that deceived you, addiction you cling to, the pain you endure and a game that you've lost and a power you've tossed into everything.
So that way the reverb gets out of the way.
Can I point out what you just did real quick?
Yes.